Was that the bite of 87?
Hello everyone and welcome back to another review and another season. Today we are looking at the glorious LEGO Bionicle set number 8923, or for people that potentially have a life, Hydraxon, not Hydroaxon, Hydraxon. And oh boy, is he awesome. He was released in the pretty mixed bag of a year, 2007, and he retailed for $20 back in the day. And he has 165 glorious Bionicle pieces, which are almost totally black and silver. Almost all of them are. But that's enough talk. Why don't we get into building? And we're done. Here he is, and he is massive. That took me about 30 to 40 minutes to build, and that was actually the first time I've ever built him. I got him used, so I can officially say it was a fun experience. It was a pretty great first time, gotta say. I know this has been said in the past, but he's basically a super pimped out Nika build, meaning he kind of feels like just the normal standard figures from this era, but really spruced up with a lot of extra spikes. And for that reason, he actually kind of feels like a mock or someone's custom design from that period, which I think is pretty cool. Now, why don't we take a look at his size real quick? We'll just bust out Tahu. And you can already see, I mean, he's not even standing up straight, and he's already just towering over Tahu. Like, this guy is very large, especially for his price. And he was part of the Warrior line, which I kind of neglected to mention. It doesn't really matter. It just basically means he's a Titan, he's a bigger set, which I feel like is kind of obvious. I mean, he's very large. You can see Tahu goes up to his elbow, and this man is humongous. He is super stunning. He really pops out on a shelf. I like to put him on like the corner of a shelf. In kind of a crazy stabby pose, because he's just so impressive. And he definitely looks very different from other Bionicle sets. Other Bionicle sets, you know, they have a lot of spiky silver pieces, but this guy has this really cool looking skull mask, and he has very pretty green eyes. But he's one of the only Bionicle figures, besides a few Earth characters, that are like totally, like, he's one of the only figures that's totally monochrome. Besides his pretty eyes and some, you know, red and blue here and there, he's like totally monochrome, and it's very, very awesome, and it makes him really pop out. And why don't we just take a closer look at some of the details. You can see he does have some extra ammo and stuff on his feet. And he has these super cool pistons, which I love these pistons. I know some people don't like them, but they don't restrict his movement too much, and they look super cool and robotic. He has the Paraka feet, which are my favorite Bionicle feet pieces. That sounds kind of creepy. And one thing that's kind of weird is he has these old friction pieces, but they didn't work too well. So you can see his right leg is super tight, and his left leg is super loose, which is kind of frustrating. And he has all these tubes and stuff back here, which I think looks super great. He has all these different varieties. Let me kind of move his legs out of the way so we can get a better look. But yeah, he just has tubes going around his whole body, into his mask. Very menacing, very cool. He has this kind of X, which is, again, kind of a unique look. He has a very kind of unique mock design. Speaking of unique, he has these giant hands. We'll take a look at those a little bit later. And on this arm, his left arm, he has these huge claws, which I think is super cool. It's just absolutely ginormous. You can kind of, you can't really do it. But if his shoulders were a little more tight, you could have him, like, hold up a whole other figure on his claws, which would not look too bad. And he did that every once in a while in the story. He would pick someone up. And this piece is kind of rubbery, which, you know, is fine. I kind of wish more Bionicle sword pieces were rubbery like that, because these hard plastic ones break quite a bit. He has some pretty cool chest armor, and all around, he's just really cool and spiky. He does have this Gatling gun, which is pretty sick. I've showed this off before, but you can see it just rotates if you hit this button, the one off camera, and you just hit it rapidly, and it works pretty well. Even though it doesn't work underwater, it is one of my more liked launchers. I think it's really cool. And it would have been nice if you could, you know, like, build it a little bit more. It kind of comes as one piece out of the factory. And as I said, he has extra bullets on his feet. Kind of a weird place for extra bullets. Like, it would have been cool if he had, like, an ammo belt. But overall, this dude is just super cool looking. And, again, really stands out compared to other Bionicle figures. Alright, and why don't we take a look at articulation now, because his articulation is surprisingly really good. So, again, he does have these pistons at the bottom of his feet. You can still do the ankle tilt. It's not as great as usual because of these bushings right here on his, on the piston. But it works pretty well, and I'm very happy with it. I think it looks super great. And his foot basically still has all the normal Bionicle movement. His knees are also, you know, pretty normal. You can get a fairly deep bend. You know, I've seen better on Bionicle figures, but honestly, I think it's pretty great. And his thighs, again, are fairly normal. He can go 90 degrees in both directions, and he can splay his leg out. Alright, back to what I was saying. His arms are, unfortunately, nothing too special. He doesn't have anything in the abdomen either, which I think is kind of a missed opportunity. Let me get him a little bit. I never noticed that you can kind of do a re-pose, a DO pose. Pretty great, kind of funny. Besides his hands, his arms are, you know, nothing too special. And on mine, this joint is actually kind of loose and cracked a little bit. Of course, those shoulder joints are always cracked on Bionicle figures. It's very frustrating, but it can splay out, and his pauldron doesn't get in the way too much. I can kind of bend out of the way a little bit. It is loose, which I appreciate. And his elbow is also nothing special. You can get the full rotation out of his shoulder. Yeah, his elbow is nothing special. It's just, you know, solid 90 degrees. But his hands are excellent. I believe, basically unique to this character. His fingers all can move. And they only really move on one axis. His thumb is especially weird, but you can disconnect it and rotate the joint around and then reconnect it, and you can get, oh crap, whoops. You can get a few more poses out of it, like a thumbs up, which I think is pretty great, pretty cool. And it adds another dimension of expression, which I really appreciate, because I believe Gadunka and Axon, totally unrelated character, cough cough, are some of the only characters with posable hands, and it's always really weird and obnoxious. On those figures, their hands are like bigger than their bodies, and it's really weird. But I feel like it's really perfected on Hydraxon, and never really used again, which is kind of weird. I don't know why that happened. And yes, I know I put his thumb on backwards. I'll fix it later. But that's about it for articulation. His wrist does move like normal, and then his head can just, look up, look down. The tubes don't get in the way, which is very nice. They're the very flexible kind. And, oh yeah, these spikes can move around. They're just on ball joints. So if you want, you can have the spikes down if he's just chilling, and then they can, like pop up when he's aggressive, I guess, if you want. But overall, I feel like articulation is, fine. His hands are incredible, and I feel like his neck articulation is pretty good, especially because a lot of the smaller sets have a lot of hindered head articulation. So, I feel like it's pretty great. But he basically just has the standard amount of articulation, which is fine. I think it's a good amount. Again, he did retail for $20 back in 2007. And that would almost double, so it would be about $40-ish now. And I honestly think that's kind of worth it. Back in the day, he had about a 9 cents per part price, which is pretty great. It was definitely worth it. And oh yeah, these spikes can kind of retract if you want his big claw, and they can jut out a little bit, just a little bit. Oh yeah, and one thing I forgot to talk about is he has a lot of red and blue, which looks kind of bad and really breaks that cool monochrome look. You can see he has at least 2 instances of this on every limb, which I really don't like. From far away, it's not too bad, but sometimes it looks like he has polka dots. I don't know, I guess in universe they could be considered bubbles that are like trapped in his armor or something. I don't really know. I think it looks kind of bad, but at least a lot of the like axles are black on this set. It would be very horrible if they were other colors. But overall, I think he looks very great. He has all these super badass spikes. Very unique look. He definitely feels like a custom figure. And he feels a lot different from other Bionicle sets. He has these super cool posable hands and fingers. And back to what I was saying about price. I would definitely pay $40 for this figure now. His resale price is kind of bonkers. On like Brickset and stuff. Used, he's listed for like, I think over $100. And it's very rare to see him for under $80. New, he's like just astronomically expensive. He is probably one of the most expensive Bionicle figures out there because he is so unique and different from all the other figures, and he still looks super great. Yeah, just a really expensive and hard to find figure. It's probably cheaper to just go to Bricklink and buy each piece individually, because he doesn't actually have any pieces that are too unique to him. Even things like his mask come in other sets. I believe the most rare thing on him is the silver Paraka foot on his chest. So I definitely think one could go out there and use Bricklink to construct him. I think that would be the best bet, because he is expensive, but I would definitely recommend him. And in most cases, I think he's actually worth the kind of overpriced price because he's just so cool. The Titans from this period are just awesome. Even if you're not a Bionicle fan, I think this guy is just super cool looking. So I would definitely recommend him. He's very expensive, but I would still recommend him. That's all I have to say. Peace out.
I'm sorry, sir. It's time for you to leave.